One steamy glance in a sterile office, and my life became a scandal-soaked roller coaster. He was 45, a conservative god with a chiseled face and a campaign that crushed souls like mine. But his secret? Those hungry, gray-eyed stares and midnight kisses that scorch my skin. I was 22, a fearless journalist, diving headfirst into a forbidden fling that screamed danger. Every whispered, "I need you," was a lie. Every touch a fuse on a powder keg. When I unleashed his darkest secret online, his world, and mine, went nuclear. My car burned to a crisp, my door was kicked in, and there he stood, fists balled, eyes blazing with rage and raw desire. Was he my soulmate or my stalker? Did I trap him in my web, or was I his pawn all along? With the city buzzing and a showdown looming, one slip could end us both. Can you handle the hottest, dirtiest drama of the year? The hum of the air conditioner in the office was the only sound cutting through the silence as I adjusted my tie in a reflection of my computer screen. My name's Alex, I'm 22, and I work as a junior editor at Horizon Press, a mid-sized publishing house in Chicago. It's not the most glamorous gig, but it's mine, and I've carved out a space here where I can be myself, openly gay, unapologetic, and damn good at my job. Today, though, my stomach was knotted tighter than usual. I was about to interview James Callahan, a 45-year-old conservative politician running for Senate, known for his polished suits and his even sharper anti-LGBT rhetoric. The irony wasn't lost on me. The office was a maze of glass partitions and cluttered desks, bathed in the cold glow of fluorescent lights. I've been prepping for this interview for days, poring over Callahan's speeches, his op-eds, his carefully curated public persona. He was all sharp edges, broad shoulders, salt and pepper hair, and a jawline that could have been chiseled from marble. His campaign ad screamed family values, but the subtext was clear. People like me didn't belong in his vision of America. So why was I nervous? It wasn't just the article I had to write. It was the way his eyes seemed to linger in the photos I'd studied, like they were hiding something. I smoothed my dark curls, checked my notes one last time, and headed to the conference room. The door creaked as I pushed it open, and there he was, already seated, his posture rigid, but his smile disarming. James Callahan in the flesh. He stood, extending a hand, his grip firm and warm. "Alex, right? Pleasure to meet you." "Likewise, Mr. Callahan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. His eyes locked onto mine, a deep, stormy gray that seemed to see right through me. I sat across from him, my notepad balanced on my knee, and clicked my pen. "Let's get started." The interview began smoothly enough. He was polished, deflecting my questions about his policies with practiced ease. But there was something else, an undercurrent. Every time I leaned forward, asking about his stance on marriage equality or workplace protections, his gaze would flicker, not with anger, but with curiosity. It was subtle, but I caught it. The way his fingers tightened around his coffee mug, the slight tilt of his head when I spoke. It wasn't the usual politician's dodge. It was personal. "So, Mr. Callahan," I said, my tone sharper now, "your platform emphasizes traditional values. Can you clarify what that means for someone like me? A gay man, living openly, just trying to do my job." His smile faltered just for a second. He leaned back, his chair creaking, and ran a hand through his hair. "That's a fair question, Alex," he said, his voice low, almost intimate. "I believe in protecting everyone's right to live their life. But I also think we need to balance individual freedoms with societal norms." "It's complicated." "Complicated," I echoed, scribbling the word in my notes. My pulse quickened. That sounded like a dodge. "Care to elaborate?" He chuckled, a sound that was warm and rough at the same time. "You're direct." "I like that." He leaned forward now, elbows on the table, his eyes fixed on mine. "Let's just say I'm still figuring out where I stand on some things." "Off the record?" I raised an eyebrow. "Sure. I met a lot of people on this campaign," he said, his voice dropping. "And sometimes you meet someone who makes you question things." His gaze didn't waver, and for a moment, the room felt too small, the air too thick. I swallowed, my throat dry. "That's cryptic, Mr. Callahan." "James," he corrected, his smile returning, softer this time. "Call me James." The rest of the interview passed in a blur. I asked my questions, he gave his answers, but the tension between us was palpable, like a current running beneath the surface. When it was over, he stood, buttoning his jacket. "This was refreshing, Alex. Most reporters don't push like you do." "Maybe they should," I said, standing to meet his gaze. He was taller than me, his presence commanding, but there was a crack in his armor, a fleeting glance at my lips before he looked away. "Listen," he said, pulling a card from his pocket. "If you ever want to continue this conversation off the clock, give me a call." He handed it to me, his fingers brushing mine for just a second too long. I stared at the card as he left, the conference room door swinging shut behind him. My heart was racing, not just from the interview, but from the weight of that moment. The weight of his words, his touch, his eyes. I should have been angry. This man stood for everything I fought against. But as I tucked his card in my pocket, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had just begun. Back at my desk, I stared at the blank document on my screen, the cursor blinking like a challenge. I had a story to write, but all I could think about was James Callahan and the dangerous spark I'd felt in that room. What was I getting myself into? He wasn't wrong. That spark, that electric pull, it was real, but it was also reckless. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's meet. Coffee tomorrow. Neutral ground. Deal," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "There's a place on Clark Street, Bean and Leaf." "No, fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But don't expect me to go easy on you." "Wouldn't dream of it," he replied, and the line went quiet. The next day, I arrived at the cafe early, the scent of roasted coffee beans and fresh pastries filling the air. The place was cozy, wooden tables, mismatched chairs, and a hum of conversation from hipsters and suits alike. I picked a corner table, my back to the wall, and sipped an iced latte, trying to calm my nerves. When James walked in, the room seemed to shift. He was out of his politician's uniform, wearing a navy sweater and jeans that hugged his frame just right. He looked human, vulnerable, even. "Alex," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. His eyes were softer today, less guarded. "You look good." I smirked, ignoring the warmth creeping up my neck. "You clean up nice yourself." "No tie today." He laughed, running a hand through his hair. "Figured I'd try to blend in." "So what's the deal? You gonna grill me again?" "Maybe," I said, leaning forward. "But first, I want to know something real. Why are you here, James? What's this about?" He looked down at his coffee, his fingers tapping the mug. "I've spent years building walls," he said finally, his voice low, saying what people want to hear. "But you're different. You see through it. And I can't stop thinking about that." My breath hitched. This was more than I'd expected, more than I was ready for. I wanted to push back to call him out, but the way he looked at me, raw and unguarded, stopped me cold. "You're playing a dangerous game," I said softly. "Maybe," he murmured, his hand brushing mine on the table. His touch was warm, electric, and for a moment I didn't pull away. As we talked, the cafe faded into the background. He wasn't a politician today. He was just James, a man with doubts, with secrets. And I was Alex, a guy who should have known better, but was already in too deep. The Chicago wind whipped through the streets as I left Bean and Leaf, my scarf flapping against my chest. James had left 10 minutes earlier, citing a campaign meeting, but his touch still lingered on my hand, a ghost of warmth that wouldn't fade. I should have been at the office finishing my article on him, but my head was a mess. Every step I took echoed with the same question. What the hell was I doing? James Callahan wasn't just a politician. He was a walking contradiction, a man whose public life screened traditional values, while his eyes told me something else entirely. I was falling for it. Back in my apartment, I dropped my keys on the counter and sank into the couch. The cities I'm filtering through the window. My phone buzzed. Another text from Maya. "Alex, where's the draft?" Editor's asking. I ignored it, pulling out James's card instead. I'd memorized the number by now, but holding it felt like holding a secret. I typed out a message, deleted it, then typed again. "Had a good time today. When's round 2? My thumb hovered over send. This was reckless, dangerous, but I hit the button anyway. His reply came faster than I expected. "Glad you enjoyed it. Tomorrow night dinner? My place, 7 p.m. He included an address in Lincoln Park, a ritzy neighborhood that screamed old money. My stomach flipped. Dinner at his place? This was moving too fast, but the pull was undeniable. I typed back, "You're on. Don't burn the food." The next evening, I stood outside a sleek brownstone, its windows glowing warmly against the dusk. My reflection in the glass door showed a guy trying too hard. Dark blazer, fitted jeans, curls tamed with too much product. I rang the bell, my heart pounding. James opened the door, and for a moment I forgot how to breathe. He wore a black button-down, sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms dusted with dark hair. "Alex," he said, his smile slow and disarming. "Come in." The house was all polished wood and modern art, the kind of place that felt curated but lived in. The scent of garlic and herbs wafted from the kitchen. "Smells good," I said, following him inside. "Didn't peg you for a chef." "I'm full of surprises," he replied, glancing over his shoulder. His eyes caught the light, gray and piercing, and I felt that spark again, electric, dangerous. Dinner was simple but perfect: grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, a bottle of red wine. We sat at a small table by a window overlooking his garden, the city's skyline a distant glow. Conversation flowed easily: books, music, even a shared love for old noir films. But beneath it all was a current of tension, like we were both waiting for the other to make a move. "So," I said, swirling my wine, "what does this fit into the James Callahan brand? Inviting a gay journalist over for dinner? Not exactly on message for your base." He leaned back, his expression tightening. "You're not going to let that go, are you?" said I. I met his gaze, challenging. "You're still running as the guy who'd rather see me invisible than you. Help me understand why I'm here." He set his glass down, his fingers over the stem. "I don't know, Alex. All I know is I spent years playing a role, saying what gets me ahead. But with you," he trailed off, his voice rough, "I don't want to pretend." My chest tightened. "That's a nice sentiment, James. But words don't enough. Your actions are what matter." "Then let me show you," he said, standing and closing the distance between us. Before I could react, his hand was on my jaw, gentle but firm, tilting my face up. His thumb brushed my cheek, and time seemed to stop. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, his breath warm against my lips. I couldn't. I leaned in, and his mouth met mine, slow, tentative, then deepening into something hungry. His hand slid to my neck, pulling me closer, and I gripped his shirt, the fabric soft under my fingers. It was reckless, wrong, but it felt like the most honest thing I'd ever done. We pulled apart, both breathing hard. His forehead rested against mine, his eyes searching. "Alex," he whispered, like my name was a confession. "This doesn't change anything," I said, my voice shaky. "You're still you. I'm still me." "I know," he said, but his hand lingered on my neck, reluctant to let go. I left his house an hour later, the night air cool against my flushed skin. My lips still tingled, my head spinning with the taste of him. I should have felt triumphant. I crossed a line with James Callahan, gotten under his skin, but all I felt was a knot of guilt and want tangled together. As I walked home, my phone buzzed with a text from him. "I'm not sorry." Neither was I. But I knew this was only the beginning of something that could burn us both. The morning light filtered through my apartment blinds, casting stripes across the hardwood floor. I sat at my kitchen counter, nursing a black coffee, the bitter taste grounding me as my mind replayed last night. James's lips on mine, his hand on my neck, the way his voice cracked when he said my name. It should have felt like a victory, a crack in the armor of a man whose politics I despised. But all I felt was a hollow ache, like I crossed a line I couldn't uncross. My phone sat beside me, silent but heavy with the weight of his last text. "I'm not sorry." I wasn't either, and that scared me most. Work was a blur. The Horizon Press office buzzed with deadlines, but I couldn't focus. My article on James was due tomorrow, and the draft was a mess. Half policy analysis, half unsaid truths about the man I'd kissed. Maya cornered me at the coffee machine, her brow furrowed. "Alex, you okay? You've been off since the Callahan interview." "I'm fine," I lied, stirring sugar into my cup. "Just stressed." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I heard a rumor. Callahan's team is sniffing around, asking about you. Be careful, okay? He's not someone to mess with." My stomach dropped. "Thanks for the heads up," I muttered, but my mind was racing. Why would his team care about me? Was it the article, or something more? That night, I met James again, this time at a quiet bar in Wicker Park. The place was dim, all exposed brick and flickering candles, the kind of spot where secrets felt safe. He was already there, nursing a bourbon, his jaw tight. He looked tired, the lines around his eyes deeper than before. "Alex," he said as I slid into the booth, his voice softer than a bar's low hum. "You came. Didn't have a better offer." I teased, but my smile felt forced. I ordered a gin and tonic, the glass cold against my palm. "Rough day," he sighed, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "You could say that. Campaign's heating up. My team's on edge, and I'm distracted." His eyes met mine, intense and unguarded. "Because of you." I swallowed, my throat tight. "James, we need to talk about this. About us. You're not just some guy. You're running for Senate in your platform." "I know." He cut in, his voice sharp. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. You think I don't know how messed up this is? I spent my life building this image, and now he trailed off, his fingers tightening around his glass. You make me want to tear it all down. My heart pounded. You can't just say that. Your policies hurt people like me. You can't kiss me one night and campaign against my rights the next. He flinched like I'd slapped him. It's not that simple, Alex. I'm trying to navigate this. I got donors, advisors, a whole machine breathing down my neck. But when I'm with you, I don't care about any of it. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But doubt gnawed at me. Was he playing me? Or was this real? And worse, what was I doing? A part of me, buried deep, had already started imagining it, exposing him, turning the secret into a weapon. The thought made me sick, but it was there, sharp and cold. We talked for hours, the bar emptying around us. He told me about his childhood in Ohio, his father's expectations, the pressure to be perfect. I told him about coming out at 17, the fights with my mom, the freedom I found in Chicago. Our hands brushed under the table. I didn't pull away. When he walked me to my car, the street quiet except for the distant hum of traffic, he stopped me, his hand on my arm. Alex, he said, his voice low, I don't know where this is going, but I need you to know I'm in, whatever that means. I looked up at him, his face half lit by a street lamp, and felt that pull again, dangerous, intoxicating. You're gonna break my heart, aren't you? I whispered. He didn't answer, just pulled me close, his lips finding mine. This kiss was different, urgent, desperate, like he was trying to say what words couldn't. I kissed it back, my hands in his hair, the world falling away. When I got home, my apartment felt too quiet. I sat at my desk, staring at my laptop. The article was still unfinished, but now it felt like a ticking bomb. I opened a new document and typed, James Callahan, private notes. My fingers hovered over the keys. I could write it all down, every look, every touch, every secret. It would be my insurance, my leverage. But as I stared at the blank page, James's voice echoed in my head. I'm in. I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. I wasn't ready to decide. Not yet. But I knew one thing. Whatever came next, it was going to hurt. The Chicago River shimmered under the midday sun, its surface rippling like liquid glass. I stood on the bridge near my office, gripping the railing, the cold metal biting into my palms. It had been 3 days since that night at the bar with James, and my head was a war zone. His kiss lingered like a bruise, sweet, painful, impossible to ignore. I wanted to lose myself in him, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw his campaign posters, his speeches, the crowd cheering for a man who'd built his platform on denying people like me. And then there was that other voice, the one whispering I could use this. Use him. Back at Horizon Press, the office was a pressure cooker. My article on James was overdue, and my editor, Karen, was breathing down my neck. Alex, this isn't like you, she said, leaning against my desk, her arms crossed. Callahan's a big fish. This piece could put you on the map. What's the holdup? I stare at my laptop, the cursor blinking accusingly. It's complicated, I muttered, which was the understatement of the century. I'd written 2 versions of the article, one a safe, policy-driven takedown of his campaign, the other a raw, unfiltered account of our encounters, locked away in my private notes. The second one could ruin him, and maybe me. That night, James texted me, "Can you get away? Meet me at the lakefront, 8 p.m. No details, just an address near Lake Michigan." I should have said no. I should have stayed home, finished the damn article, and kept my distance. But my fingers typed, "I'll be there," before my brain could catch up. The lakefront was quiet, the water lapping gently against the shore, the city's skyline a glowing backdrop. James stood by a bench, his silhouette sharp against the twilight. He wore a dark coat, his hands in his pockets, and when he saw me, his face softened. "Alex," he said, stepping closer. "Thanks for coming. You're making a habit of these secret meetings," I said, trying to keep my tone light. But my heart was racing, and not just from the cold air off the lake. "What's this about?" He gestured to the bench, and we sat, close enough that our knees brushed. "I needed to see you," he said, his voice low, almost drowned out by the waves. "Things are getting messy. My team's asking questions." They saw us at the bar. My stomach twisted. "What kind of questions?" He looked out at the water, his jaw tight. "They're worried about optics. About you. They think you're a risk." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "They're not raw. I'm a gay journalist, James. I'm your worst nightmare." He turned to me, his eyes fierce. "You're not. You're the only thing that feels real right now." He reached for my hand, his fingers warm against mine. I'm drowning in this campaign, Alex. The lies, the expectations. But with you, I can breathe. I wanted to pull away to tell him he didn't get to say that while standing for everything I hated. But his touch anchored me, and I hated how much I craved it. "You're not being fair," I whispered. "You can't have both me and your campaign." "I know," he said, his voice breaking. He leaned in, his forehead against mine, and for a moment, we just sat there, the world reduced to the space between us. Then he kissed me, slow and deep, his hand cupping my face like I was something precious. I kissed him back, my fingers digging into his coat, desperation seeping into every touch. When we pulled apart, I was shaking. "This is going to end badly," I said, my voice barely audible. "Maybe," he murmured, his thumb brushing my lip. "But I'd rather crash and burn with you than play it safe without you." I went home that night and opened my laptop. My private notes stare back at me, a ticking bomb. I added to them, "Lakefront, he kissed me again." So I make him feel real. My fingers hovered over the keys, and then I did something I hadn't planned. I copied the file, encrypted it, and sent it to a burner email I'd set up years ago for sources. Insurance, leverage, a way out, or a way to destroy him. I stared at the confirmation email, my chest tight. I wasn't ready to use it, not yet. But the seed was planted, and it terrified me how easy it had been to take that step. James was in my blood now, but so was the anger, the betrayal of everything I stood for. I closed my laptop and poured a glass of wine, the city's lights blurring through my window. I was walking a tightrope, and one wrong move could send us both tumbling. The Chicago skyline was a jagged silhouette against the stormy sky, rain streaking my apartment windows like tears. I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop screen casting shadows across my face. My article on James Callahan was finally done, polished, professional, and safe, focusing on his policies and campaign promises. But the other file, the one in my burner email, burned in my mind. Every word I'd written about our meetings, our kisses, his whispered confessions, it was a grenade, and I'd already pulled the pin. It had been a week since the lakefront, and James and I had fallen into a dangerous rhythm. Stolen moments in quiet bars, late-night texts, his hand brushing mine in ways that made my chest ache. Each time, I told myself I could stop, that I could walk away from him and his contradictions. But I didn't. Instead, I kept adding to my secret notes, documenting every glance, every touch, like a journalist and a traitor all at once. Tonight, though, something had to give. My phone buzzed, James's name lighting up the screen. "Can you come over? Need to talk." Now, no address this time. He knew I'd remember the way to his brownstone. I grabbed my jacket, the rain soaking me as I stepped outside, the city's pulse matching my own. By the time I reached his door, my curls were plastered to my forehead, my heart pounding louder than the storm. He opened the door before I could knock, his face pale, eyes wild. "Alex," he said, pulling me inside. The house was dim, the air heavy with the scent of coffee and something sharper. Whiskey, maybe. He wore a rumpled shirt, tie loose, like he'd been pacing for hours. "My team knows," he said, his voice raw. "They saw us. At the wake, someone took pictures." My stomach dropped. "Pictures? What kind of pictures?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the living room. "Enough to cause problems. Grainy, but it's us. You me too close. They're freaking out, Alex. They wanted to cut you off, to spin it as a setup, anything to save the campaign." I leaned against the wall, my wet jacket dripping onto the hardwood. "And what do you want, James? To save your campaign? We're to keep this." I gestured between us, my voice sharper than I meant. He stopped pacing, his eyes locking onto mine. "I want you," he said, stepping closer. "I don't care about the campaign right now. I don't care about the optics. He broke off, his hand reaching for mine, but I pulled back. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice shaking. "You're still the guy telling people like me we don't belong. You can't just pick and choose when to care." "Alex, I'm trying," he said, desperation creeping into his tone. "I'm trying to figure this out, to be better. For you." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "For me? Or for you?" The words spilled out before I could stop them. I saw the hurt flash across his face. But I was too far gone, the weight of my secret file pressing against my chest. I could end him right now. All it would take was a few clicks, and a world would know James Callahan's truth. He stepped closer, his hand cupping my face, his thumb brushing the rain from my cheek. "I'm scared, Alex," he whispered. scared of losing everything. But mostly, I'm scared of losing you. My resolve cracked. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him into a kiss that was more anger than tenderness, all teeth and need. He kissed me back, his hands gripping my waist, the storm outside mirroring the one inside us. When we broke apart, panting, I saw something in his eyes. Trust, raw and unguarded. It made my stomach twist. I have to go, I said, stepping back, my voice barely steady. He didn't stop me, just watched as I walked out into the rain. Back in my apartment, I sat at my desk, my hands trembling. I opened my burner email, the file staring back at me like a loaded gun. I could do it. I could send it to Horizon Press, to every outlet in the city. James Callahan, the conservative golden boy, exposed as a hypocrite. It'll be justice. It'll be revenge. I typed out a subject line, the truth about James Callahan. My finger hovered over the send button, my heart racing. Then I thought of his eyes, his confession, the way he'd held me like I was his lifeline. I slammed my laptop shut, my breath ragged. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But the line between love and betrayal was blurring, and I didn't know how much longer I could hold it together. The rain had stopped, but the Chicago streets glistened under the streetlights, slick and unforgiving. I stood in the parking lot behind my apartment, staring at the smoldering wreck of my car. The acrid stench of burnt rubber and gasoline stung my nose, and the twisted metal frame was barely recognizable. Someone had torched it, deliberately, viciously. My hands shook as I dialed 911, my voice steady but hollow as I reported the vandalism. Deep down, I knew this wasn't random. This was a message, and it had James Callahan's name written all over it. It had been 2 days since I'd sat at my desk, staring at that email with the subject line, the truth about James Callahan. I hadn't sent it, not to Horizon Press, not to anyone.